أفضل خلقه أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، سلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before I start the concluding part of the series of lectures on Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, we know that, mashallah, many of our brothers and sisters have already left for Umrah, and another group is leaving perhaps tomorrow and right into Rajab from all over England and in fact from all over the world. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that their journey is inshallah safe and they come back safely home with their efforts accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, there are certain points which, had I had an opportunity of saying this earlier, I would have said it, but last Friday was another program altogether and many have left. But even for those who are still here and who are going to leave soon, it is not very late if I say that there are certain changes in the fatwa according to the Ayatullah al-Udhama Sayyid Gulpaigani, which are necessary for us to take into consideration. But apart from the changes in the fatwa or the difference in the fatwa, the common thing which must be kept in mind and is very important is that many people go to Umrah Mufrada without understanding that in Umrah Mufrada, Tawaf al-Nisa is wajib. That means there are two sets of tawaf. As they will enter Makkah, they will first do tawaf, which is tawaf for Umrah Mufrada. And then they will go for 2 rakat salat, which will be salat for Umrah Mufrada tawaf. After that, they will perform sa'i. And after sa'i, they will go for taqseer, that means removal of either nail or from the hair. Of course, there is no complete shaving of the head in Umrah Mufrada. And thereafter, there is Tawaf al-Nisa. They'll come back for one new set of Tawaf, 7 times, which is the niyat of Tawaf al-Nisa for both men and women. And then there is again 2 rakat namaz Tawaf al-Nisa. Now the problem is that those who sometimes forget or are ignorant of the masail, they come back without Tawaf al-Nisa and they come to understand here the problem is that the relationship between husband and wife is not permissible if Tawaf al-Nisa has not been performed. And I remember that the Maraji' themselves, that means like Ayatullah al-Khuy Quddisa Sirruh or Ayatullah al-Hakim Rahmatullah alayh, or even Ayatullah Gulpaigani, were not easily allowing niyabat for Tawaf al-Nisa. They would insist that the fellow must go back and perform Tawaf al-Nisa himself. And I remember when a particular gentleman came to Iraq while I was there in 1982, and he told me that I have forgotten Tawaf al-Nisa and so has my wife. I took him to Ayatullah because we were in Najaf. And Ayatullah, when he heard this particular episode, he was so angry. Before answering, he said, how can a mu'min go without knowing the masail beforehand? And how can you forget Tawaf al-Nisa? Well, there was no answer to that. So I said, Agha, what should he do? He said, tell him. And that man was sitting there. He said, tell him to go back. Now that was not possible for that man for some reasons. He said, Agha, I cannot go. Then after some reluctance, Agha told me, all right, tell him to appoint a naib immediately. Immediately. A naib who will perform on his behalf. And tell him that as long as that is performed, there is no relationship with the wife. It is haram. So I will request mu'mineen going tomorrow or day after or thereafter to keep this in mind, not only for themselves, but also for those who have already been there, to remind them, for a man can forget. This is wajib for both ladies and gents. And those of us who go with nabaligh boys or girls, that means they have not yet reached the age of bulugh. And umrah, although umrah itself is mustahab, is not wajib, but once having made a niyyat and worn the ihram, then everything that is involved in umrah is wajib. I mean, you cannot say that because umrah itself is mustahab, therefore I will do a part of it and I will leave a part of it. You just cannot do it. The act itself is mustahab, but once having worn the ihram and made the niyyah, then everything from tawaf onwards becomes obligatory in performance of umrah mufrida. So the option is either you make them wear ihram, those nabaligh boys and girls who are with you. If you make them wear ihram and make a niyyat, then they must perform every act, including tawafun nisa. If they don't, then inshallah when they attain the age of marriage, there can be no nikah till they have gone for tawafun nisa. So the easiest way is when you take nabaligh children with you, don't make them wear ihram, because they can enter Makkah without ihram. I mean, putting on two clothes does not mean ihram. Ihram means making a niyyah and talbiyah. They can don two clothes just to seemingly, apparently, as if they have put on ihram. But don't make them come there and make a niyyah. Take them together, show them the places, show them how we go to Khana Kaaba, teach them, make them familiar with the place, but don't make them do niyyah. If you make them do the niyyah and talbiyah, then please see that they also perform tawafun nisa. This is very, very important. The second thing is this, that for ihram, Ayatullah Gulpaigani says that for umrah mufrada alone, not for hajj, a niyat can be made by nazar if you are not going to any miqat. Miqat are the places which have been appointed by Sharia for wearing ihram, like Masjid al-Shajara near Medina, like Juhfa, or like Yalamlam for all other places. He says that a man either makes a niyat that he is going to wear ihram from here. That means suppose he is going from London or he is going from Africa, from where? From home. He can make that I am wearing ihram for umrah mufrida. Or alternatively, he can make a nazar that when he reaches Jeddah, not before. The moment he reaches Jeddah, he makes nazar that I am wearing ihram from here for umrah mufrada. He can. This is according to Ayatullah Gulpaigani. But for the ladies, please remember that two clothes of ihram are as necessary as for men, according to Ayatullah Gulpaigani. That means on top of their own clothes, which is ihram, he recommends that two sheet of clothes, like the men, they must put on at least at the time of making a niyyah and talbiyah. After that it can be removed. So labs thawbain, that means wearing two clothes, just like Ayatullah Hakim used to say, Ayatullah Gulpaigani considers this as important, it must be worn. So when they make a niyyah, they can wear this, and then that same cloth can be worn by another lady if she will make a niyyah. It is not necessary that they wear it all the time, they wear it at the time of niyyah. The third thing is that according to Ayatullah Gulpaigani, traveling under the shade in the state of ihram does not apply to those who are traveling at night. So there will be no kafara if you are traveling, even in ihram, under the shade, that means covered car or covered plane or whatever. Plane is of course covered, but the cars that we always try to find, cars without hoods. I mean, those, it's not necessary if it is after sunset. Because he says that the shade means sunlight, sunshade, daytime. Night, of course, there's no question of shade. It's already sun has set. So there is no harm in istidlal, that means going under the shade in the halat of ihram if you are traveling after sunset. This mas'ala was for men. For women, of course, there is no question. Even daytime they can travel under the shade. There is no kafar. Finally, when there is a rush in Makkah, it is not possible sometimes to do tawaf within the given precinct. As you know, the given precinct is 26 arm length plus quarter. Now, if, I don't know, because I have not been for the last 10 years, but there used to be a red line drawn around the precinct to show that this is the limit of tawaf filled. Beyond it is not tawaf filled. There used to be a line drawn. It was not a line rather, but it was, I think, that color of stone which was arranged to show that this is the area which should be, within which we must do tawaf. I don't know whether it exists now or it does not, because many things have changed. Ayatollah Al-Khuy Qudsa Sirru used to say that unless it becomes absolutely necessary, you can't go beyond that area. But in Hajj, of course, people, there are millions and millions of people doing tawaf. He allowed that in those circumstances you go beyond that red line. But Ayatollah Gul Payagani says that even if there is no rush, even if there is no such big rush, if somebody does tawaf beyond that 26 arm length, that will also be acceptable up to the gates of Haram, not beyond that. That means in Masjidul Haram. So these are the masail. And apart from that, I know that it is going to be an educational tour Dr. Sadiq Rahim is taking. May Allah give him the tawfiq of doing this service every year, and of people joining him, and we wish them all well. The important thing is to explain to our people that this is not a tourist excursion, that they are going there to see places only. You see, it's something which has got to do with our ruh, our spiritual enhancement and elevation. Believe me, when someone will see Khana Kaaba, the house of Allah, for the first time, and if that spiritual preparedness is there, he will for a time feel that he is not on this earth. He is not on earth, he is elsewhere. And if he goes and sits near Kaaba at night, in that tranquil and very calm atmosphere, people feel so very much attuned to divinity. That is the beauty of Kaaba. Simple, no ornaments, no adornments, nothing of the sort. A simple cube stands there, right in the middle, as if it was right in the center of earth, and a man sits there to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is very important. There are so many dua, all have been optional, they are all sunnah, but please let us take the book together and read. As we do sa'i, as we do tawaf, there are so many things to be read and to seek forgiveness. Finally, I would request them all, while we are praying for them to come home, we request them all not to forget us. In your prayers when you are there, remember us at various places and seek for a forgiveness for all mu'mineen. Do tawaf on behalf of the people with whom you live. Now, finally, the month of Rajab. Most of them are going in the last days of Jamadi Thaniya, and Rajab is the month of Umrah. Actually, the month of Umrah is Rajab. According to our dates here, it will begin on 26th of December, the month of Rajab. Now, there is no harm. You go now If you want to live in Medina for 3-4 days, inshallah, by that time, Rajab will set in. Even if you go earlier in Jamaat al-Thani to Makkah, you perform your Umrah Mufrada, and then you have a chance to do your Umrah Mufrada in Rajab by going to the Mosque of Tan'im, which is not very far away from Makkah. There you will go, make a niyat again, wear ihram all over and do another Umrah Mufrada. Please do not miss the Umrah Mufrada of Rajab. Rajab, the Prophet said. I remember to have committed this mistake in 1967 when I went to Najaf and I went to Agha Hakim rahmatullah alayh. It was Jamaat al-Thani last date. He said, "Are you coming directly from East Africa?" I said, "I was coming from Jeddah after having performed my Umrah." Ayatullah smiled and said, "Didn't you know that Rajab was drawing near? And there isn't any month of Umrah better than Rajab. Do you know how much you have lost?" Well, I really felt very much repentant. I said, "Agha, this was my mistake." He said, "Now, in order to make amends, I can only recommend to you one thing. On the 3rd of Rajab, it is the date of wafat of Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salam. So go on this night to Samarra and be near the haram of Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salam for the night and for the day together with all the zawar, but stay there, live for the night. Perhaps," he said, "I cannot tell you, perhaps Allah may grant you that thawab which you have lost for not having been in Makkah during Rajab." You can imagine this. The ahadith of the Prophet, reported by both Sunnah and Shia, are so many, insisting upon Rajab for Umrah. So those of us who are going, please make sure that you do not get deprived of the thawab of Rajab, and pray for us, inshallah ta'ala. Very few points only I have to deal with tonight. And this is the conclusion, although the ayats are many after this, but they are not related to the history of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. So only this particular ayat is left. We now know that they have all reunited. Father, mother and brothers have all come. They also prostrated. They did sajda. And Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam immediately drew the attention of Hazrat Yaqub and said, "This is the interpretation of my dream which I had seen, that 11 stars bow down before me, and so do the sun and the moon." Of course, as I clarified, this sajda was for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yusuf alayhi salam was in the form of qibla. Just like Adam, when the malaika were told to do sajda, sajda was for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Malaika did the sajda considering Adam as a qibla. Qibla means direction. Because sajda for any human being is not permitted at all. In our Sharia Islamiyya, not necessarily Shia, but all brothers, Shia or Sunnah, they will not permit, because it is not permissible. No sajda, no prostration before anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even bowing down, when you bow down before someone to respect him, it must be to a limit. Not bowing down to show as ruku' or sajda. These are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Had it been permissible, the Prophet said, then it would have been recommended for the children to bow down before their parents and for the wife to bow down before her husband, subhanallah. But not now. Well, after the whole episode that had passed over Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, with all the problems that he had encountered, the beauty is in this last ayah with which the whole story ends. It is ayah number 101. When everything was over, Hazrat Yusuf could have just raised his hand and said, Ya Allah, now listen to my sad story. What you did with me from the beginning. When I was young, I was taken away by my brothers. They put me into the well. You saw it, what was happening. Then my father was lamenting and mourning of thinking I was dead. Then I was sold for few dirhams. I was taken a slave. And the problems with Zulaykha and all that, he could have recounted every part of the sad story. But Quran says that after reuniting with the parents and having met the brothers and forgiven them, Yusuf alayhi salam raised his hand and said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Rabbi qad ataytani min al-mulk wa 'allamtani min ta'wil al-ahadith. Ya Allah, I wish to establish only one thing, that you have given me kingdom, a part of it, some authority. Everything preceding is forgotten. I am talking of the bounties and the blessings. Ya Allah, you gave me some authority and some kingdom here. And you also taught me interpretation of the dreams and events. So Yusuf is now remembering Allah's blessings and ni'mah and forgets all the trials and tribulations. The most important part, gentlemen, is in any event in this life, three things are important, according to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One, let us see if what I am in at the moment and the way I am reacting to it is according to the will and pleasure of Allah or not. Rida. Is Allah pleased with this, the way I am at the moment doing? That is the first thing. Second thing is composure, sabr and patience. And third thing is to fulfill one's own duty according to the circumstances you are in. Very sensible thing that the Prophet has said. The first thing is to see whether I am doing it according to the pleasure of Allah or not, or rida. Second, to retain oneself, to contain oneself in composure and sabr. And then third, in this sabr one must not fall into a negative attitude to fail the duty. So when the duty calls upon, to perform. Well, the example that we have in history is Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa sallam alayhi. Do we know this? That he came to the Khilafah. When he came to the Khilafah, when people thronged, and he himself describes in Nahj al-Balagha that the people forced themselves unto me till they trampled upon my toes. There were so many of them. And they insisted that, Ya Ali, take over now because we have none. And Imam Ali Islam took over in the brief for 4 years and 9 months. That Khilafat was only for 4 years and 9 months and some days, but 9 months. What happened? Not a single day of respite. Not a single day of rest. The fact is that on the very day of bay'ah, the bay'ah is done this way. The hand is stretched this way by the Khalifa. And whoever comes to do the bay'at keeps the hand like this. It is not a shaking of the hands, nor is his hand kept up. His hand is like this, stretched. People come and as they place their palm, they do bay'at. This was how the bay'at was done. Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam stretched his hand for bay'ah as people came one after the other. Talha came, and he placed his left hand. Normally they must place the right. He came and he kept his left hand. The moment he kept his left hand, Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam says, this is the first day. He knew what was going to happen. Imam said, this is the first day. From that day onwards, till Imam alayhi salam's martyrdom, Jamal, Siffin, Nahrawan, all these battles were fought. They did not allow Imam alayhi salam to live peacefully. We are thankful to Allah. It is only Imam who can do this, that the Nahj al-Balagha is with us, in which of course there are so many khutbahs and so many kalam of Ali ibn Abi Talib, which he could do in spite of all these distractions. It's only Imam who could do it. Otherwise, other person would just complete his life complaining. As we can see from Nahj al-Balagha, how Imam alayhi salam was mistreated by people, ridiculed sometimes. And don't be surprised, even today. People sometimes say that people are remembered after their deaths. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam is such a madloom that after his death also we have got on record so many poetries in which Abdurrahman ibn Muljim is complimented for having killed Ali ibn Abi Talib. We have got it on record. I mean, after the death also they have complimented. They said that you were the Waliullah for having killed Ali ibn Abi Talib. We have got this on record. So sometimes even after the death of a person, you can't expect people to change. Ali ibn Abi Talib Islam is that madloom if one ponders over it. How wronged he has been and how misunderstood. But I would like to give only one incident. The battle of Jamal was raging at that time when someone came and said, Ya Ali. This has been reported by Dr. Taha Hussain in his book Al-Fitnatul Kubra, which is in 2 volumes. The first volume is Aliyun wa Banu and second volume is Uthman. Aliyun wa Banu, the first volume is Ali and his sons, and second is Uthman, about Uthman. In this chapter of Aliyun, in this book of Aliyun wa Banu, Al-Fitnatul Kubra, Dr. Taha Hussain says, remember one thing, Taha Hussain was an atheist. If he wasn't an atheist, he was an agnostic. In a sense, he believed in no religion. He says that the only man who has impressed me with his wisdom and sanity after Quran is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He says that. And as an example, he quotes this particular incident, that as the battle of Jamal was raging, one man comes and says, Ya Ali, I respect you very much. But can people like Talha, Zubair and Aisha, such great people, be on the wrong side? Now what is the answer? They are fighting with you, they are fighting against you. They are fighting against you, but they are Talha and Zubair and they are Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. Can these be on the wrong side and you are on the right side? Now these are the questions of sentiments and passions where people try to decide upon appearance. Because Talha was also Sahaba of Rasul. Zubair was not only Sahaba, he was also the cousin of Imam Ali. Yes, Imam, the son of Imam Ali alayhi salam's aunt, Phuphi-zada. But there is no question of sentiment here. Imam Ali alayhi salam answers him, and this is in Nahj al-Balagha, and Taha Hussain quotes it and says, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, sit down my brother, innaka lamalbusun alayk, you are confused. أعرف الحق تعرف أهله وأعرف الباطل تعرف أهله. You don't judge this way what is right and wrong. First, try to know what is the truth. Then you will know the people of the truth. First, try to know what is untrue. Then you will know the people belonging untrue. Don't see the status of the people. See where the truth lies. See where the untruth lies. First, judge the truth from the untruth. Discriminate and distinguish. And then after discerning it, then whoever is on that path belongs to that path. Try to understand this way. Here Taha Hussain writes that I haven't seen anything so wise after Kitabullah as these particular statements of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. To keep oneself dispassionate and always to see that I do it for rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why I say this before I conclude? I say this because when the people sometimes gather to attack someone, as they did to attack Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, or they did to attack our Prophet, or they did to attack Imam Hussein in Karbala, or they do to attack Mu'mineen today, they gather forces. At that time, what will you do? What will you do? Suddenly you find circulars and letters flying here and there. What will you do? Threats coming in. We'll take you to charity commissioner. What will you do? Maqbool Rahim's speech was so timely today. It will remind many to take us to charity commissioner. All these things are flying in the air. At that particular moment in time when everything is going around you, we always have got to see that first thing is it in rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to maintain silence, and secondly is to remain composed as long as we are on the truth, and third, inshallah, there will be no failure in performing of the duty. The duty is on the positive side. There are people dying of hunger. There are people who have no houses and shelter. Recently in India, there are 100 families of Surat who are in the mosque. They don't have anything to eat or drink. They are being provided for. In Ahmedabad, in Surat, one family is still missing. We don't know where he is, killed or whatever. There are Muslim brothers who are burnt alive. This is India. Bosnia, I don't think that in this history that I have in my mind, I have ever heard of the atrocities of the type that committed in Bosnia. This morning you might have heard from BBC that how many illegitimate children are going to be born because of Serbian atrocities of Muslim women. Purposely. What is called ethnic cleansing. People in Somalia, people everywhere, Muslims everywhere, and Shias in particular are in problem. The positive side is to perform the duty towards them. If the world allows us to perform the duty towards them, we will perform and do some constructive work and go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we die and say, we tried. But if we don't engage ourselves in that which is positive and go in the matters which are negative and confusing, then we will be left nowhere. That is the reason why we say, just as Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam said, Rabbi, آتيتني من الملك وعلمتني من تأويل الأحاديث فاطر السماوات والأرض. You are the creator of heavens and earth. توفني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين. Take me away from earth as a Muslim. That means as long as I live a Muslim, and I die a Muslim. Tawaffani, take me away unto you, a Muslim. The Prophet says this. Yusuf is a prophet. Tawaffani Musliman wa alhiqni bis salihin, and join me with the righteous ancestors who have gone by. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.